Hey guys, this is Mr. Grice for Algebra 2's unit. Well, this really isn't a unit because this is second semester review A. Yes, I know, we're already at the semester. It's almost time for finals. Okay, so show all your work and circle your final answers. So the directions tell us that we need to factor. The first thing that we always look for is a GCF. So is there a GCF? Nope. So no GCF means I'm trying to multiply to find numbers that multiply to get to -20 and add to get to a +1. And those numbers are 4 and 5. Now to make sure it's a +1, the 4 has to be negative. So we call this splitting the middle terms. So the 2x squared minus 4x plus 5x minus 10. You would draw a line down the middle and take the GCF of both groups. Which groups? Well, the yellow group and the blue group. So the GCF of the yellow is a 2x. I factor out a 2x and I'm left with x minus 2. Now the back, the GCF is a 5 and I factored out a +5 and my remainder is x minus 2. Now I know that I did it right because these guys are 100% the same. So my answer is x minus 2 and then 2x plus 5. Now, I'm only going to be doing the odds for you guys. Okay? All right. Now, this one's a little bit different because of this word right in front, solve. I have to solve for x. So the first thing I always look for is there a GCF? And I can take out a 4 and I can take out an x. Now, my GCF comes out front and I'm left with x minus 3. Good. And don't forget that that equals 0. Now that equals 0 is important because it says that we need to solve. So everything with a variable we set equal to 0 and figure out what x is. Here we would divide by 4, here we would add 3, and my last step is to put those answers in numerical order. And there we go. X equals 0 and 3. All right, once again, it's asking us to solve. So I check to see if there's a GCF, and there's not. So then I need to factor. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to -15 and add to -2. And those numbers are 3 and 5. And it's going to be a -3. Now, I like this because my leading coefficient is a 1, which means I can break it right down. I can put this to x plus 3, x minus 5. Don't forget that it equals 0 because we're solving. And then once again, we have x plus 3 equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. You guys should be good with solving those. So we get our two answers of -3 and +5. Okay, once again, we have to solve. Okay, so here we go. 2x squared minus 6x plus 9. I'm looking for numbers that multiply to get to 18 and add to get to -6. Well, the factors of 18 are 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. But looking at this, there are, let's see, I can do 2 and 9, but no, that gets to -7 and a +18. There's nothing that works. Well, how do we solve it? The quadratic formula. So I wrote down what A, B, and C are. Remember that x equals the opposite of B, so it's a -6, so now it's going to be +6. So do you remember the song? X equals the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So let's see, b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So there we go. Now, my first step is to do everything underneath the square root and that 4. So in my calculator, I'm going to do negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c, and we get negative 36. What the heck, negative 36? I can't take the square root of negative 36. Oh, wait, I can because we've learned about imaginary numbers. So remember that the square root, I'm going to do this off to the side, negative 36, I break that up to, I take out the I, and then it's the square root of 36, and that turns out to be 6. So we're left with 6i. So now we have x equals 6 plus or minus 6i divided by 4, and then we just reduce that. 6 divided by 4, 6 divided by 4. So we get 3 plus or minus 3i, all divided by 2. Because all we did was just reduce those fractions. Okay. Number 9, simplify. So this is what we were just kind of talking about. When we notice that there's a negative, we take out the I right away, and then I want to break up the 48 into perfect squares. And I would check to see if 36 does, 25. The only one that does is, well, the highest one is 16. The square root of 16 is 4, so we have 4i square root 3. All right. Number 11. Once again, I'm looking for numbers that break into 96. We're checking all the perfect squares, so 81, 64, 49, 36, 25, and once again, this one is 16, and it's 16 and 6. The square root of 16 is 4, and we're left over with 6. Right, it was 16, right? 96 divided by 16. Yeah, 16 and 6. Okay, let's go ahead and flip it over. So directions say that we need to solve. So when we solve, we do inverse operations. Okay, so I want to get the root by itself, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. We get 3x plus 5 squared equals 21. I'm going to divide by 3, and we get x plus 5 equals 7. Sorry, that's still squared. To get rid of the square, I need to do the square root. So now we have x plus 5 equals, now I don't know what the square root of 7 is. It doesn't work out, but I know it could be two different answers. It could be a plus 7 or it could, or plus square root 7 or a negative square root 7. And then to get the x by itself, I subtract 5 to both sides. So we have x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 7. Okay, for that, it's just keeping organized and not losing anything. Okay? Now, to state the number of solutions this has, what we want to use is called the discriminant. And the discriminant is the part underneath the square root. Okay? If it's a positive number, we're going to have 2 real solutions. If it's a negative, we're going to have an imaginary, okay? And then if it's a 0, we're going to get 1 real solution. So we do that part underneath, here's my A, B, and C. We do the square root of B squared minus 4AC. So it's negative 4, 1, and 11. So I have negative 4 squared minus 4 times A times C, and we get negative 28. Sorry, the square root of negative 28. So when we would solve that, since it's going to be plus or minus outside, that's going to give us two imaginary solutions. Okay? And then the last one below, use the graph to identify the solutions and the domain of range. So remember that the solutions are where it crosses the x-intercept. And so our solutions, this would be negative 1, 0. This would be 3, 0. Solutions, I just care about the x value. So x equals negative 1 and 3. Now my domain is all of my x values from left to right. And that's from negative infinity to positive infinity. And then my range is my y values from low to high. So that means we're going down to negative infinity, and the highest point that we get is a positive 4. Okay, well that's it. Now if you have any other questions, please come see Ms. Carranza or myself. We would love to help you out. Otherwise, this is Mr. Grice signing off for Algebra 2, Semester 2, Unit A review. Thanks for watching.